And they were like, first of all, she's dating a man who's however many years older than her, and da-da-da-da. And I was like, I would too, for a check, like. Hey everybody, welcome back to another video. It's Jayla, and I read a whole bunch of books that I want to talk about with you guys today. I actually didn't film a December wrap-up, so I'm going to be filming December and January in this video, and I didn't do that because I was posting a lot at the end of December. I know you guys were tired of me, I'm sorry, but I had a lot of end of the year content to get out, and I said, okay, so we'll just do every 2 days and we'll have to deal with it. So yeah, I had decided I wasn't going to post a December wrap-up because I was like overwhelming everybody's feed already. So we have it all here. I also didn't read that much in December, so it doesn't make this video 10 times longer to talk about these books. So yeah, let's just get into everything I read. The first book I read in December was The Apocalypse of Elena Mendoza by Sean David Hutchinson. I'm actually a really big Sean David Hutchinson fan. This book, sadly, did not live up to what I know he can do as an author. It's about a girl named Elena Mendoza, and she is the product of a virgin birth, which means her mother had never had sex before becoming pregnant with Elena. And yeah, so everyone in her town and even in the world kind of knows about this birth and how crazy it is. And some people think she's blessed, some people think she's cursed, da-da-da-da-da. You know how it is. So that followed her around for the rest of her life, basically. And she's 16 now. She's trying to survive high school before she can get out of this town and blah, 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 blah. Because she got bullied for it, which is, why would you bully someone for being Jesus? It doesn't make any sense to me. That's the coolest thing ever, to be able to say that you are literally, you don't have a dad. Wait. That might be very insensitive to say. I'm so sorry. I'm trying to think of a better way to phrase that, but to say that you're Jesus, but then also Jesus was bullied. I mean, bullied is a light word compared to what Jesus was, but I'm gonna stop. I'm gonna move away from this. Moving far ahead, she's working at Starbucks one day, and she goes outside to talk to the girl that she likes because she wants to finally do something about her crush, when something happens and she realizes that she actually has powers that can heal people. And that's crazy. But it does come with a catch, and Elena has to kind of juggle with the fact that her power can be used for really good things and help a lot of people, but it also could ruin other people's lives. So that was a really interesting idea for a story, and I really wanted to read it. I had read Sean David Hutchinson's other books, At the Edge of the Universe and We Are the Ants. And those were really good. Those are some of my favorite books, YA sci-fis. Every Sean David Hutchinson book I've read so far has had a really cool main character, so that's a check. It has a really interesting premise and high stakes and a lot of mystery surrounding it, so that's another check. And the characters are always queer and just awesome, and I just love putting those characters into these it's not high sci-fi, but sci-fi in a contemporary setting. So I loved those books. I love those elements of his books. Unfortunately, even though this had all those things, this one was pretty unmemorable for me. I don't remember much of what happened, and I don't remember being very invested in the story. I kind of just wanted it to be over. On top of that, the girl that Elena likes is such an asshole that it really made me dislike Elena because she wanted to spend time with this very abrasive and annoying character. And I don't know, obviously I always just want better for the main character, and the asshole character had a reason for being an asshole, sort of, kind of, not really, but I hated it. I hated all of it. The writing was super enjoyable because Sean David Hutchinson always knows how to strike this really good balance between dark and edgy and really humorous. And like I said, the stakes are always kind of high, but also it's a pretty light book overall. This was pretty disappointing as far as books by him go, but it was still interesting. Next book I read / listened to was The Last Wish by Andrzej Sapkowski. This is from the Witcher universe, as we already know. I'm sure you've already seen this book around everywhere, but I really wanted to read this because I love the show. Unfortunately, this one ended up being a 3-star for me. Part of this rating definitely has to do with how much I enjoyed the show and how much the book wasn't the show. I think the show did a really good job of telling a bigger story and connecting these other stories throughout it. If you didn't know, this is a short story collection that's a prequel to the original series, and so it tells a bunch of stories that probably give context to things, or are Easter eggs and a bunch of stuff that I don't have. Okay, sorry that my lighting and position and everything changed. I had to go be a productive member of my household and help people, so that was really annoying. But I'm back! I was saying that the show does a really good job of taking each individual story in this book and making it into a larger, bigger story that all comes together towards the end, whereas this one is more just random stories. Not random, they all have sense and provide context and everything, but they do not do the bigger picture like the show does. So that's on me. I feel like I should have read the first book in the series first rather than reading point 5 or whatever you would call this. So I want to continue with this series, but I feel like I should start with book 1 instead of like doing the next collection in this series and then dealing with book 1. I definitely think that would help me understand it more. Or maybe I'm just dumb and this is really super easy to understand. Let me know. You decide in the comments. Also, I just want to point out that the show did a really good job of adapting the book in some cases. I can't speak. I'm not a huge mega fan, so like I feel like I'm going to piss off some fans by saying stuff like that. But when I was listening and reading this book, I was like really picturing the things that they were talking about, and it was so easy to understand what was going on because I'd seen the show, and the blocking and the dialogue and everything, like some of it was really spot on. So I was just really impressed with how much they stuck to the source material. But anyway, I am done talking about the show. Let me just stick to the book. I didn't really love the writing in this book, and I feel like I wouldn't have finished it unless I had the audiobook, which was phenomenal. Peter Kinney did an amazing job narrating this, and he really made the book for me, because I don't know, I just wasn't feeling the writing style. It's definitely got what I would describe as like a classic fantasy style, and I guess I don't really read much of that, so this was just not what I was used to. But yeah, Peter Kinney's performance was amazing, and he really brought the story to life with his voices and accents, and it was such a good time. Okay, so the next one I'm scared to talk about because everybody loves this book, and I really did not end up loving this book, but that is Cemetery Boys by Aiden Thomas. I am not rating this one because technically this is a DNF. It's unofficial because I have put it down with the idea that I'm going to pick it up again. I have about 70 pages left. I stopped on page 272 because I just really wasn't feeling it. But I wanted to kind of get through the last of it, but I couldn't. I'm telling myself, like, yes, that last 70 pages is worth it. It's going to change your entire opinion of the book, but I haven't been able to muster the ability to just pick it back up again, so I put it down. That being said, I got really far into it, so I think it's safe to say that this is just not a book that I enjoyed very much. I really can't pinpoint what exactly about it I didn't love, but like some things were the love interest, Julian, I just found him extremely annoying, and I felt sorry for Yadriel that he had to babysit this kid this entire story because I didn't find it very fun. They did have really cute moments sometimes, and I felt a little bit of shipping for them, but overall I was just really tired of being around them. I was ready to get rid of him, basically, which is horrible, I know. I also wasn't really into the writing style, but I'm going to try not to really harp on that too much because Aiden Thomas, this is his debut novel, and he was also trying to provide cultural context to his story, so let me explain what it's about before going any further. This is about a kid named Yadriel who wants to be a brujo like the rest of the men in his family, but since he's trans, people tend to not take him seriously. They don't think that he is capable of it, qualified, whatever the word is. They just don't think that it's possible for him to be a brujo. So he's set on proving them wrong, and he does the ceremony himself that kind of officially makes you a brujo. But something goes wrong, and he ends up summoning the wrong ghost. He ends up summoning Julian. Turns out Julian was murdered the same night that Yadriel did his ceremony, and so they kind of try and help each other out with Yadriel being able to summon and also let Julian go to peace. He can prove that he's a real brujo, but before that, he has to help Julian figure out how he died and what happened. So this mixes in Latin American mythology, rituals, and cultural practices, and so there's a lot of that in this book that I just felt was kind of info dumped into the story and not really put in an organic way. And then there were definitely some emotional beats in the story that just did not hit me. I did not connect at all. And I just feel terrible. Like, I'm probably a heartless bitch, and now everyone on YouTube knows it. But I am rehoming this bad boy because I did a giveaway, and some lucky person is going to get to take it home with them. So unfortunately, it wasn't for me, but I hope the other person really enjoys it. So that was everything I read in December, and technically didn't finish in December. But then I read Paper Girls Volumes 1 and 2 for January. That's how I kicked off January. I actually want to thank Katie from Thoughts of Katie for sending this to me. She was unhauling Volume 1, and I was like, hey, I actually really want to try this out, and she was kind enough to send them to me. And then I immediately went out and got Volume 2 after reading this one because I was like, oh, I kind of dig this. This is by the same guy who wrote Saga, so I already knew I loved those, and I figured I'd probably love these as well, but I had just never gotten around to picking them up. And I did end up really enjoying these. I gave them both 4 stars. I don't really have a ton of thoughts on these right now. The story's only really just beginning with these first 2 volumes, but I am really enjoying the art style, and I think the story is surprisingly heavy and kind of dark for a story that's centered around like 12-year-old or 13-year-old girls, so I'm really enjoying that. I think the only thing I can say right now that I'm not loving is that the storyline is kind of confusing, but it's got time travel and stuff involved, so I expect nothing less. So the next book that I read was Luster by Raven Leilani, and this book has some mixed opinions in my own head as well as on the internet. Lots of people think it's one of the best books of 2020, other people think that this book was terrible, and I'm somewhere in the middle. I gave this 3.5 stars. I think this book is very interesting, so that's one word to use. It's about this girl named Edie. She's like 23 years old. She's got a job in publishing, which is one of the things that really drew me to the story because, hey, that's what I wanted to be doing, so I was like, let me read about that. She actually ends up losing this job and her apartment, and she has to move in with a guy that she's been seeing who's like 20 years older than her, who is kind of a creep, honestly, but we won't get into that. And he's also married with a kid. So they're in an open marriage, and she's kind of just like this awkward third wheel who everyone knows about, but they just kind of pretend that it's not weird. It's a whole thing. So Edie moves in with them until she can get back up on her feet, and during that time, she forms a relationship with the wife. She forms a relationship with the daughter, too, who is a black child, and she was adopted by a white family. That's the other thing. He's a white man, too. But we won't get into that. But, hello, dog. How can I help you? You heard white man and you came running, huh? Long story short, Edie's life is a mess. My dog's here. He agrees that her life is a mess. And so the story follows us trying to see Edie getting back on her feet, if you can really call it that. And yeah, it's a messy story. Lots of stuff happening, but I won't go into any more of that. I thought the writing was really good. It definitely has that MFA student style that people associate it with, and that makes sense because she was an MFA student. She studied creative writing. So yeah, I think that it worked for me, and she did a really good job of developing Edie's character as far as who she was and how she got to be who she became at the beginning of the story. But my biggest problem with this book is that there is literally no character development from who she is at the beginning to who she is at the end, and that really drives me crazy because this girl's messed up and she needs help. So I can understand that maybe the story is just about how it's not easy to get help, but I also think that if you're going to make a story, put a little bit of hope in it. just a little sprinkle right there, because otherwise it's just a bummer. It's frustrating to read about, and it just makes you question, like, what was the point? Also, everyone in this book is weird and awful, except for the kid. She's just a kid. But yeah, everyone around her, all the adults in her life, are just messed up weirdos, and I want better for her, I truly do. So I still like this book because of the great writing, and there were definitely elements of the story that I really enjoyed, such as her working in publishing, being one of the few black girls in the office, and having to compete with the other black girl, or refusing to compete. It was a really interesting discussion, actually, that I won't go into, but just about race in publishing was really interesting. I love the black nerdiness of it. The child is really into anime, and she writes fan fiction and stuff, and I just thought it was a really cute storyline that I wish we had gotten more of that cute wholesomeness than everything else that happened in this book. I really did enjoy seeing Edie and the kid bonding with each other, and I thought that was one of the better selling points of the book. So I'm actually a part of a book club, and this was the book that I recommended, and everyone in the book club was a bit older than me, and by a bit I mean a lot older than me, and so while I didn't really necessarily care about some of the choices Edie makes as far as how many sexual partners she has, everyone in the group was just freaking out about it and just really upset with the content. And like, I was upset in different ways because I knew that it was unhealthy behavior that she was exhibiting, but not necessarily because she sleeps with a lot of people. Like, okay, you can do whatever you want. But anyway, I just thought it was a very interesting discussion we had because I'm coming in from a much younger perspective and more open to what people do these days. And they were like, first of all, she's dating a man who's however many years older than her and da-da-da-da. And I was like, I would too for a check, like. But no, I probably wouldn't. I don't know. Okay, so the next book I read was Meet Cute Club by Jack Harbin. This was more of a 3 or 2.5 star book for me. Definitely leaning more towards 2.5. I did not enjoy it so much. It was pretty meh. Because first off, I went into it thinking that it was going to be something else. I was excited because I thought it was about these two guys who worked at a bookstore together and end up falling in love. But they don't work there together. It's just one of them shops there. And the whole, like, meet cute is basically that he's going to buy some romance books because he's got a romance book club. And Rex, who is the love interest, is working at the cash register of the bookstore and basically insults his taste in books and says that they're just all for grannies and like they're not really that good. And so that kicks off the whole storyline of Rex trying to get closer to Jordan by going to his book club and all this stuff, and you know, giving romance books their flowers, because they often do get shit on a lot, including by me, but I promise, like, if I find that romance book that works for me, you will be the first to hear about it. So yeah, I was disappointed because I thought it was going to be like a workplace romance, and it wasn't. But overall, I think their relationship was pretty cute. Unfortunately, I hated Rex at the beginning of the story. Like, their meet cute just made me hate him automatically. Like, yes, I know he was teasing. Jordan is the name of the main character. Yes, I know he was teasing Jordan at the beginning, but, like, you know when you tease and then you just tease too far and you just keep going and, like, the person's clearly not reciprocating and it's not really flirting, you're just being mean? That was what Rex was doing. And so it made me hate him for a long time. And eventually I, like, warmed up to him, but really not. I still found him very annoying. So when you don't like one half of the romance in a book about romance, that's probably not a good thing. I also felt like the dying book club element of this, which is kind of Jordan's conflict in the story, because he has this book club that he's been doing for a few years, and it's slowly gotten smaller and smaller as people like get busy or find something else that they're more interested in. And so he's getting really bummed out that people have stopped coming. While I understand why that's a bummer, it just wasn't really the most interesting plot idea, and it didn't keep me interested enough to care about Jordan's suffering. All that being said, I really enjoyed the more steamy scenes in this book, or more saucé, as Memo Brown would say in her latest video. But yeah, it just wasn't enough to save this book fully for me, even though it was a really sweet ending. But it is short and it's sweet, and it is somewhat cute. So if you want one of those, a nice queer romance, I would suggest checking this one out. This one I actually am rehoming as well because someone asked for it, so I would be happy to give it away to someone who probably will appreciate it more. The next book that I read was Heartstopper Volume 2 by Alice Oseman. We all know this book. We all love these books. I have never heard a bad thing said about these books. This was 5 out of 5 stars. If you don't know, it follows a boy named Nick and a boy named Charlie who start out as friends at their high school, and slowly they get really, really close, and just, you know, cute things ensue. Relationships, love it. This one is just expanding more on their relationship, helping certain people figure out things, and it was just really nice, and that's all I'm going to say. It was really cute. My favorite things are the supportive parents, the supportive friend. I love to see it, you know? It made me cry. Y'all, can we talk about the book that changed 2021 and changed the game and changed fantasy forever? Because it's right here. It's Black Sun by Rebecca Rowan Horace. This was my favorite read of the month, my favorite read of my life. Probably not, maybe not my life, but yeah, maybe, I don't know. Maybe it's just up there. It's one of my new favorite reads, okay? I love this book. I don't want to overhype it because I keep doing that, and now I get really self-conscious that people are going to hate it, but it was popular before I read it. Everyone said that it was good. So, yeah, it was good. I just get really insecure when people see that I've, like, really enjoyed the book and then assume, oh, she's, like, crazy about it. It must be really good. And then they don't like it, and then they think I have terrible taste. So, this is the struggle of having a booktube channel. Anyway, as you can obviously see, I gave this 5 out of 5 stars, 10 out of 5 stars, infinity out of 5 stars. I really enjoyed this book. I felt like it was so well paced. All the characters were fantastic. The magic system, the world building. I just loved every moment of it, and I wished it was longer. It did have a bit of an abrupt ending, and so that's my one kind of issue with it, was just that it seemed like it was going to keep going, and then when I turned the page, it was in the acknowledgements, and I was like, oh, that's it? Like, that doesn't feel like it should be the end. But yeah, really good, huge cliffhanger at the end, so I need the sequel ASAP. I do plan to do a full review and post it sometime in the coming weeks, so I'm not going to say too much more, but yeah, it makes me happy. After Black Sun, I read Black Book by Matteo Escoripour. I think that's how you say it. I'm sorry if I said it wrong. This is about a kid named Darren who is 22, and he is super smart. He has so much potential, but he kind of wasted it all away just working at a Starbucks. Everyone around him says that he can do better for himself, and he is just content to be where he is. One day, the CEO of a really mysterious tech startup comes to Darren's, like, Starbucks, and I don't know, stuff happens. He ends up getting offered a job. He is in for a wild ride because he has to face so much racism and prejudice and just all these terrible things when he first starts working there. and even continuing throughout the book. It gets so much bigger than just this office thing, but I don't want to give away too much because it does just explode. But it's a really interesting satire on the tech industry, racism, gentrification. There's so many things, like so many themes in this book that are really good and important to talk about. Unfortunately, this was still a 3.5 for me because while it was really good and had so many great discussions, it also just became really exploded. I can't think of a better word, but it just took 4 different stories and then slammed them into one story, and it was just really jarring. It didn't help that the time jumps happening between like part 1, part 2, part 3, they were just very big, and they just really took me out of the story because we didn't really get to see the process of Darren from Starbucks manager to super rich, successful guy. It was just like 3 months later I was doing this and I was here, and then a year later I was doing this and I was here, and I'm like, okay, but I want to see that. Like, it wasn't the best. This is Mateo's debut, so I'm sure with other work he will get even better as a writer. But there were also some really cringy parts to the story. I can think of, for example, hold on, let me pull out the notes. There was a comment that the narrator made, and he was saying something was cold, and he said it was colder than an Inuit's titty, and I'm just like, that was the weirdest, most strange thing you could possibly say, and he didn't need to do it. They also described a woman's breast as ripe melons, stuff like that. I talked to someone on Instagram about this book, and they were pointing out how weirdly and how kind of wrong it was how he wrote women, and so I can definitely see her point of view on that. I will try and find the review she did on her blog, because I read it and I was like really interested and agreed with a lot of what she said, so I will try and leave that link down below. But yeah, I think with that feedback and critics coming in, I'm sure he's going to become even better as a writer, and I will be definitely reading more of his stuff. But I just wish that the story had stayed more singular, because it really just got so much bigger than it needed to and became so much less realistic, and it just really took me out of the story, even though I know it was supposed to be kind of more bizarre. It was compared to Sorry to Bother You, and I can understand the similar elements, but for me, I was just like, this is just a lot, and I'm not enjoying it as much anymore. So yeah. I will briefly talk about reading Stone Cold Surrender by Brenda Jackson. This was the first book in the bind-up that I had of Ignited by Passion. I read this for a reading vlog that will be up soon, hopefully, so stay tuned for that. And I unfortunately didn't like Stone Cold Surrender, but I don't think that's surprising to anyone based off of my feelings towards the other book in this, which was Riding the Storm. So all you really need to know about my feelings on this one was just that the characters were dramatically less problematic in this book. However, it was still a really, really slow story. The plot was extremely weak, and it just overall was a really boring one to get through. So that's how I felt about this. 2-star read right here. Okay, so this feels like the longest video ever. I'm sorry, but I am finally down to my last 3 books, and that is the Grisha Trilogy by Leigh Bardugo. I started reading these at the end of January, and I was able to finish Shadow and Bone and Siege and Storm. I haven't finished Ruin and Rising yet, so we are going to stay tuned for a full review of this one as well, uploaded onto my channel at some point. I wanted to include it just because I am almost done with it, and right now I'm thinking that this is like a 3-star series for me, but things could very much change if I really like the ending of this book, so we will see when I post that video. I definitely see how Leigh Bardugo has vastly improved as a writer, so yeah, I'm looking forward to the TV show, which is why I read these, and I think that it has a lot of potential to be a really good show, because now that I understand what the plot of these were, I feel like it's going to translate really well to the big screen, to the TV screen, I don't know. But as far as these 2 books, I gave this one 3 stars and a coffee stain because I spilled my mocha frappe on it, unfortunately. And I gave this one 3.5 stars, so I will talk about them more in depth in that review that I'm posting soon, but that's my thoughts on them right now. So that's everything that I read in January. It was a really good reading month after coming out of a December reading slump, so yeah, I feel really happy about everything I read, even if some of them were huge disappointments for me. But I'm excited about February reading. I plan to read a whole bunch of romance. It is Black History Month. Happy Black History Month. If you enjoyed this video, please leave a like and a comment down below telling me what you read or what your favorite book of this month was. Also consider following me on Instagram at LalaLovesLit if you want to see more bookish things from me, and you can be my friend on Goodreads as well. Both links are in the description. I am done talking. I'm actually exhausted from this video, but also tired of hearing my own voice, so I'm gonna go. That's all I have to say. Thanks for watching. Have a great day.